The plain of Dura stretched out like a sheet of hammered bronze under the Babylonian sun, flat, vast, shimmering with heat that rose in slow waves from the baked earth. This was the empire of Nebuchadnezzar, the most powerful king the ancient world had ever known, a man who had bent nations to his will the way a blacksmith bends iron, with fire and force and the absolute certainty that he would not be refused. Babylon itself was a wonder. Its walls were so wide that chariots could race along the top of them. Its gardens climbed toward heaven in terraces of impossible green. Its streets hummed with the sound of 100 languages, 100 conquered peoples brought together under one golden shadow. And among those people, young men taken from Jerusalem when the city fell, were 3 whose names had been changed when they arrived. Their Hebrew names, the names their mothers had given them, had been replaced with Babylonian ones. The world called them Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But they remembered who they were. They remembered whose they were. These were not men who made a show of their faith. They were not loud or defiant for the sake of drama. They were scholars, administrators, men who served the empire with competence and quiet dignity. They had found a way to live faithfully in an unfaithful place, until the day the king built his statue. And everything changed. 90 feet tall, 9 feet wide, solid gold, or at least gold-covered, catching the light of the Babylonian morning and throwing it back across the plain in blinding sheets of brilliance. Nebuchadnezzar had it erected on the plain of Dura, and then he summoned everyone: satraps, administrators, governors, judges, treasurers, officials of every rank from every province. They came from all corners of the empire, a vast sea of robes and authority and carefully arranged loyalty, gathering on that wide flat plain beneath the shadow of the statue that seemed to scrape the sky. The herald's voice cut through the crowd like a blade. When you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, the pipe, and every kind of music, you will fall down and worship the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace. The instruments played, and the crowd dropped like grain before a scythe. Thousands of people, all at once, pressing their faces to the hot Babylonian earth in a wave of submission that rolled across the plain. All except 3. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stood. Just stood. In a field of bowed backs and bent knees, they remained upright, still, quiet, exposed. What did that feel like, to be the only 3 standing in a crowd of thousands? The blood must have been loud in their ears. The statue's gold must have seemed even more blinding when every other face was pointed down. They were not hiding. They could not hide. They were simply present and refusing. Word reached the king almost immediately. There were men, the scripture says, certain Chaldeans, who came and denounced the Jews. Whether out of jealousy or genuine offense or cold political calculation, they brought the accusation directly to Nebuchadnezzar. These men, they said, these men that you yourself appointed over the province of Babylon, they do not serve your gods or worship the golden image you have set up. The king's fury was immediate and physical. His face changed. Scripture says his expression changed toward them. Something tightened, something darkened. He had given these men position. He had elevated them. And this was how they answered his favor. He sent for them. Imagine that walk. Imagine being brought through the corridors of Babylonian power, past the palace walls painted with blue glaze and golden lions, into the presence of the most powerful man in the world, who is looking at you with barely controlled rage. Nebuchadnezzar gave them one more chance. Is it true, he asked, is it true that you do not serve my gods? I will give you another opportunity. When the music plays, if you bow, very well. But if you do not, you will be thrown into the blazing furnace. And then he said something remarkable. He said, and what God will be able to rescue you from my hand? He meant it as a rhetorical question. He expected no answer. He got one. O Nebuchadnezzar, they said, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But even if he does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image you have set up. Even if he does not. Those 4 words have echoed through centuries. They did not stand there clutching a promise of rescue. They stood with open hands and open eyes, saying, "Our God can save us. Our God may save us. And if he does not, still, we will not bow." This was not the faith of certainty. This was the faith of surrender. The deepest, most costly kind. Nebuchadnezzar's fury became something almost animal. Have the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual. He commanded his strongest soldiers to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in their robes, their trousers, their turbans, their other clothes, and throw them in. The furnace was so hot that the soldiers who dragged them to its mouth were killed by the flames that leapt out, killed by proximity to the heat meant for 3 others. And the 3 fell, bound, into the fire. The king watched. Of course he watched. He leaned toward the furnace, toward the roar and the light and the heat that made the air itself ripple and distort. And then his face changed again. Not rage this time. Something else entirely. Weren't there 3 men we threw in? Yes, O king. Look, I see 4 men, walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed. And the 4th looks like a son of the gods. 4. Unbound. Walking. He called to them. He came as near to the door of the furnace as he dared. This king who had never feared anything. And he called out, "Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out." And they did. They walked out of the fire. And the crowd that gathered, all the satraps, the administrators, the governors, the royal advisors, they crowded close and they looked, and they could see. Their bodies had not been burned. Their hair was not singed. Their robes were not scorched. And there was not the smell of fire on them. Not the smell of smoke on a single thread of their clothing. Not the smell. They had been inside the thing that destroys, and it had not touched them. There is something in this story that reaches past history, past empires, past golden statues and Babylonian plains. It touches something true about the nature of faith and what it actually costs. These 3 men did not receive a vision, a dream, a promise whispered in the night. They received only the chance to choose. And they chose, not knowing the outcome, with their whole lives on the line. They stepped toward the fire before anyone told them they would survive it. And the mystery is not only that they lived. The mystery is the 4th figure. Whoever that was, whatever that was, he was with them. In the fire. Not rescuing them from the outside. Walking with them inside the flame. That is the image this story leaves behind. Not the golden statue crumbling. Not the king humbled. But that, the presence of someone holy, walking in the burning place, with the ones who chose faithfulness over safety. There is a God who does not only wait at the edge of the fire.